Yes, so now we are seeing this factorial of a number. So already we have learned this factorial of a number in your last class. As we know, suppose if I enter the number as a 5, what is the 5 factorial? 5 into 4 into 3 into 2 into 1, that is 120. Got it? So this is our problem. To solve this problem, what we have to do? We have to develop an algorithm. So to develop an algorithm, first we are taking the step 1 to start. What is the step 1? Start. In step 2, we are reading the number. What is the number I am reading? For n, I am reading the number as 5. Okay. Here step 3, it is initializing, means you have to write the for loop, right? For initializing, I am taking I is equal to 1, fact is equal to 1. So we are taking two more variables and it is being initialized I is equal to 1, fact is equal to 1. Now we are repeating step 4 through step 6 until I equal to n. I equal to n means I less than or equal to n. Got it? For this, what you are supposed to write? While writing in coding, we will use like this. Yes. How we are writing? For I equal to 1, I less than or equal to n, and I plus plus. So we are writing this for loop. This is the statement for your repeat step 4 through step 6 until I equal to n, means you are writing for loop like this. Okay. Yes. Let us consider here for I is equal to 1, I less than or equal to n. Whether condition is true? Yes, condition is true. If the condition is true, it is entering into the block. In block, what you are doing? You are given that fact is equal to fact into I. Right? Fact is equal to fact into I. What is the initial value of a fact? Initial value of a fact is 1 into I value. What is the I value now? 1 into 1. Then where you are storing? In fact. What is the new value of a fact now? It become as a 1. Okay. In fact, we are storing the value as 1. Right. Afterwards, where the control will go? It will go for the incrementation I plus plus. So we have to repeat the step 4 to right. Now what is the new value of I? Now the new value of I is 2. 2 less than or equal to 5, condition is true. Once again it will enter here. Already in fact it consists of a 1, right? It consists of a 1 into now new value of I. What is the new value of I? 2. 1 into 2, 2. So now what is the value it will be stored in your fact? It is a 2. Got it? In the same sense I will be incremented. So this is the steps for repetition from 4 to 6. Got it? So 4 to 6 likewise it will be evaluated. Clear? Yes. So now it is a 2. Next I becomes 3. 2 into 3 6. Next 4. 4 into 6 24. 24 into 5 120. Got it? Yes. So once it will store in fact as 120, that is the thing here you are doing, repeating the steps for I plus 1. Got it? So generally we are writing for loop like this. So to solve this factorial, we are using this algorithm. Last step, before the last step, what you are printing? You are printing the fact. Okay. So likewise you are executing this program. Clear? Afterwards you are using like this. Okay. Make, yes, you are printing the fact will be factorial of 5 is 120. It will print as 120 and next you are stopping. Okay. So that is your program, factorial of a number. Now one more program is there. We have to input a number and check whether it is a palindrome or not. So as we have know what is a palindrome. If you read from left to right or right to left, the number, if the number is the same, then that number is called as palindrome. For example, 111. So if you read from left to right or right to left, it will come as 111 only. Got it? Yes. Now to solve this palindrome number, let me take algorithm. In the step 1 we are reading the value. So I am reading the value n. What is the value of n? I'm reading 111. Okay, and we require sum of a variable, that is a summation. I'm treating it as a s, and a is equal to n. A is means some temporary variable. In temporary variable I'm storing n value. What is n value now? 111. Now I'm writing this condition while n greater than 0. In step 3 I'm writing while n greater than 0. It has to begin. First I'm calculating the remainder. 111 percentile 10. So then what is the remainder? What is the remainder? 11 tens are 110, and the remainder is 1. Right? S into 10, 0 into 10, 0, plus 1, 1. So in S it will store 1. For the continuation of the loop, we are taking n is equal to n by 10. Okay, so if you take it as a n by 10, then 11 by 10, sorry, 111 by 10, the remainder is the quotient is 11. Now once again it will come here, 11 greater than 0, condition true. Once again it will begin, and 11 percentile 10, it is giving the remainder as 1. Once again here it comes 1 into 10, 10 plus 1, it become 11. Okay, the new value of s is 10. 1 into 10, 10 plus remainder value is 1. 10 plus 1, 11, where I am storing in s. Next it comes to the n is equal to n by 10. So already 11 by 10. Now what is the quotient value? 1. Now once again it comes to the while loop, 1 greater than 0, condition is true. 1 percentile 10, the value is 1. So already in s it consists of 11 into 10, 110 plus 1, 111. Okay, in s it will store as a 111. N is equal to n by 10. 1 by 10 is 0. 1 percentile 10 is 1. 2 percentile 10 is 2. 3 percentile 10 is 3. 1 by 10 is 0. 2 by 10 is 0. 3 by 10 is 0. Okay, yes. So now the new value of n is 0. 0 greater than 0, condition false. It will come to the step 4. In step 4 we are comparing once again if s equal to a. So in s it has come as a 111. In a also we have stored it as a 111. If this condition is true, it is a printing, it is a palindrome. If it is not, then it will print not palindrome. Okay, in step 5 we are stopping this algorithm. So likewise you can write any number of algorithm for any problem. Here one program has given prime number or not. Okay, so we have to detect whether the given number is prime or not. Then how to detect if the given number is a prime or not, that you should have to know, right? So let me take this. What is a prime number actually? Let me check. Okay, let me check what is prime number. As you know, what is a prime number, right? What is prime number? Please observe here. Let us see a number that is divisible only by itself and 1. Okay, what is prime number? The number which is divisible by 1 and itself. That number is called as prime number. Clear? So here the example has been given here: 2, 3, 5, 7, 11. The number other than 1 is also prime number because 1 is divisible by 1, right? Herewise it has given 2, 3, 5, 7, 11. 2 is divisible by 2, 3 is divisible by 3, 5 is divisible by 5, 7 is divisible by 7, and 1, right? So that is why it is called as prime number. So now what is a prime number? The number which is divisible by 1 and itself is called as prime number. Okay, so to do this we are taking an algorithm. For that we are starting. What is the step 1? Start. What is the step 2? We are initializing I value as 2 and p value as 2. Okay, why it is 2? Because already the number 1 is prime, right? It is divisible by 1, right? So we should not have taken from 1. We should have to consider it from 2 onwards. 2, 3, 5, 7, 11 and so on is prime numbers. Now enter any number to detect prime or not as G number. So we have to enter a number. That number should be stored in G number. For example, I am taking 8. I know 8 is not a prime number, right? 8 is not a prime number. Why? 8 is having factors, right? It is divisible by 2, it is divisible by 4. Even though we know, let me take once again. Now I am checking if G number percentile I. What is the value we have taken in G number? 8. 8 percentile I. What is I value? 2. 8 percentile 2 equal to 0. Whether it is true? If true, then continue, else go to step 6. Okay. If it is true, then we have to ask to enter another number. Okay. So it has to continue. Continue means it has to skip this value and it has to ask for another number. Now I am giving 9. As we know, 9 is not a prime number. Whether 9 is a prime number? No. Prime 9 is also not a prime number, right? 1, 3, 5, 7, 11. Why? Because 9 is divisible by 3, right? What is the definition of a prime number? The number which is divisible by 1 and itself. Now I am taking it as a 11. Okay, as we know, 11 is not divisible by 2 or any other prime factors, right? So now in G number I am storing 11. 11 percentile 2. I am taking 11 percentile 2 equal to 0. Condition is false, right? Immediately it will goes to the sixth line. In the sixth line I will be incremented. Now I become 3. Okay, once again it will come false. I will be incremented. False, false, false. How long it will? It will print, it will continue until unless I becomes 11. 11% 11 equal to 0. If it is true, then it will come here. Okay, so P is equal to 1. You are assigning P value as 1 and check I less than G number. If it is true, then it has to go to fourth number. No. If P equal to 0 or G number equal to 2, then continue. So we are writing this condition. I have not explained this program. I will explain this program because it consists in your lab program also. Okay. So after this, I will completely explain this prime number. Then you came to know what it is happening. In P equal to 0 or G number equal to 2, then go to step 11. It immediately comes to the step 11. But prime number here P is assigned as 1 and it will skip step 6, step 7 and step 8. It comes here step 8, but if the condition is true, then where it will go? It will go to the step 9. In the step 9 the number is prime because 11 is prime number. Okay, we have considering for 11, not for as a 8 or not for as a 9. Okay, clear? If I take the 9, whenever it increments, it become a 3, 9% 3 equal to 0. If it is true, then it will skip. It is not a prime number. Got it? So likewise, it will evaluate afterwards. After displaying the prime number, it immediately after the step 10, it will directly go to the step 12. In the step 12, you are ending your program. Okay. So that is your algorithm, and another algorithm is there. It is all for your understanding purpose, but don't take it as a very serious. You just take the definition of an algorithm and two of the programs, this biggest among the three numbers and average of three numbers as well as a factorial may be asked. Okay, so you just go through it, and palindrome is also asked. You just go through some of these programs. Now let us see another program, another problem for designing an algorithm. What is the problem? An algorithm to detect given number is count number of odd, even and zeros in the list of integers. In the list of integers, we have to count number of zeros and number of evens and number of odds. Okay, for this we are starting the step 1. In step 2 we are initializing I is equal to 0, even is equal to 0, odd is equal to 0 and 0 is equal to 0 and size and arrays. So yet it has been not done. because arrays concept has to be complete. After the completion of your arrays concept, we will explain this algorithm. Okay, please keep in touch. We will explain later. And now, next our topic is flowcharts. Next our topic is flowcharts. What is an algorithm? Algorithm is a step-by-step procedure to solve a problem, right? Here the flowchart is also a step-by-step diagrammatic representation of the logic paths to solve a given problem, or a flowchart is a visual or graphical representation of an algorithm. Okay, so simple definition of flowcharts is pictographical representation of, okay, pictographical representation of an algorithm is called as flowchart. Okay, so this definition you just make a note. It will be asked for the 2 marks. Already you are seeing in your previous question paper, pseudocode question has asked and algorithm has asked, right? So there may be a chance of asking a flowcharts also. Okay, what is a flowchart? A flowchart is a pictographical representation of an algorithm, means step-by-step procedure of solving a problem in a picture format. Okay, the flowcharts are pictographical representation of the methods to be used to solve a given problem and help a great deal to analyze the problem and plan its solution in systematic and orderly manner. So by using these flowcharts, we can solve our problems in a graphical forms. Okay, got it? In the graphical forms, we can solve step by step. Clear? Suppose if we say, for example, you are a good lover of book reading. Let us consider that if you are a good lover of book reading, in book reading you can read the contents, right? When that famous book is bring in the form of a picture, so we are adding some graphics. By adding that graphics, it gives a more effectiveness, right? In the same sense, whatever the problem you have identified in your algorithm, whenever you transform that into a graphical format, it will give more effectiveness of solving a problem. Okay, so then when you solving your problem in an effective manner, you follow a systematic and orderly representation of your solutions. Okay, a flowchart when translated into a proper computer language results in complete program. So whenever a flowchart is translated in a proper computer language, it results in complete program. By using this flowchart, we are translating our computer language. It will result a complete program. Got it? So when you develop a flowcharts, you have to use proper computer language. If you use the proper computer language, then it will become a complete program. Okay, for example, to construct a house, if you have a plan like you should be kitchen should be there, or your toilet should be there, or living room is like there, or so and so, when it comes in the form of a blueprint. What is a blueprint? Pictographical representation of your house. Okay, that pictographical representation of your house will definitely gives an idea about how your house look like. Okay, likewise we are representing your flowcharts. Okay, yes, so that is the flowchart. What is the definition of flowchart? Pictographical representation of algorithm is called as flowcharts. Okay, now what are the advantages of flowcharts? Let me see what are the advantages of flowcharts. The flowcharts shows the logic of a problem displayed in pictographical fashion, which facilitate easier checking of an algorithm. So this flowchart shows the logic of a problem. By looking into your picture, we can able to identify what are the programming logics. So whenever we are seeing that logics in a pictographical fashion, it is easy to understand what is your algorithm says. Okay, the flowchart is the second point. The flowchart is good means of communication to other users. And also by representing your flowchart, it is a easy way of communicating your program to other users. It is also a compact means of recording an algorithm solution to a problem. So also it is giving one of the best solution for your algorithms. Okay. And third point, the flowchart allows the problem solver to break the problem into parts. Whenever you are solving the problem, if you have bring it into a algorithm, whenever you are developing into a flowcharts, the problem solver breaks the problem into parts. Whatever the problem you are facing, we are dividing. So the problem can be divided. If it is a complex problem, I can divide and I can resolve. Right? These parts can be connected to make master chart. Whatever the divided portion is exist, I can add it to the master chart, main chart. Whatever the problem you have identified, how you have solved, that can be added to your main chart. Got it? For example, if you are saying as a living room, so while explaining that living room, you will take in the living room where you have to place your TV, where you have to place your sofas, where you have to place your furnitures and so on. Right? That will be broadly explained in another chart. Right? I'm just considering your human flowcharts, human blueprints. Whenever you're developing a problem to your solution of an algorithms, in the same sense, if it is a complex, then we will break that complex into a parts and we will focus on that parts, and if it is a solve, then we will add that part into a main program. Okay. The flowchart is a permanent record of the solution which can be consulted at later time. So it can be treated as a permanent solution whatever we have defined, whatever the problems we have defined. Okay, so it is gives a permanent solution for our problems also. Now let us see the differences between flowchart and algorithm. If you observe the first point in an algorithm, a method of representing the step-by-step logical procedure for solving a problem. This is the definition. Flowchart is a diagrammatic representation of an algorithm. It is constructed using different types of boxes and symbols. Here we are using some pictures. Consist of boxes and symbols, where in algorithms it is the step-by-step logical procedure for solving a problem. What is the step 2? In algorithm, it contains step-by-step English descriptions, each step representing a particular operations leading to solution of a problem. So in algorithms, it consists of step-by-step English descriptions. By using that English descriptions, English language, you are giving the representation of a particular operations that represent that particular operation to the solution of your problem. And in flowchart employs a series of blocks and arrows, each of which represent a particular step in an algorithm. In your flowcharts, it consists of sum of symbols, set of symbols. Here it is treated as blocks, and also it consists of an arrows. Arrows says the flow of data. Arrows indicates the flow of data of which represent particular step in algorithm. Whatever the steps represented in algorithm, I can make into a pictographical format by using some boxes as well as arrows. Okay. Number third point. These are particularly useful for small problems. Algorithm is the best solution for small problems. Whenever it comes to the criticality, it is doesn't solve. Okay. Third point, in flowchart, these are useful for detailed representation of complicated programs. Even if your problem is very complex, your complex can be easily solved in your flowchart. You can represent that complexity in your flowcharts. Okay. And fourth point, for complex programs, algorithms proves to be inadequate. Already we have said in third point, it is only suitable for small problems. For large problems, your algorithm is inadequate. It is not suitable. For complex programs, flowcharts prove to be adequate. If you are using any difficult problem, complex means difficult problems. For that difficult problems, your flowcharts are very much sufficient and it is adaptable. It is adequate means it is very much sufficient and it is very adaptable. Okay, you can use these flowcharts for any kind of a problems, even if it is a small or if it is a complex. Now let us see what are the symbols used in flowcharts. The symbols used in your flowcharts we make use while drawing flowcharts as given below as per conventions followed by international standard organizations. These symbols has been given one of our authority ISO. ISO stands for International Standard Organization. So we should not change these procedures. If we want to change these flowcharts symbols, we have to suppose to contact these authority persons. Okay. For example, here first one is oval. Rectangle with rounded side is used to indicate either start or stop of the program. So here it is appearing a round shape. This round shape indicates rectangle with rounded sides indicates that in your flowchart starting and stopping of a program, starting of the program as well as stopping of the program. And input and output indicators. Here input and output indicators are represented by parallelogram used to represent your input and output operation. Statements like input, read and print are used in these parallelograms. Okay, so you are seeing some symbol here which is somewhat crossed rectangle, right? This is a parallelogram. This parallelogram is used for input and output operations and also to read and display purpose. Okay. And what is the third indicator? Here the process indicator, rectangle. Here rectangle indicates what exactly you are processing. Okay, what exactly you are computing. Got it. Rectangle is used to indicate any set of processing operation such as for storing arithmetic operations. By using these process indicators, you are processing operations and also you are storing arithmetic operations. So whatever you are doing, that job is one of our arithmetical operations. Okay, we should know what is the arithmetic operations, right? And next one is decision makers. The diamond. Here the diamond is used for indicating the step of decision making and therefore known as decision box. This diamond is indicated as decision box and hence decision box are used to test the condition or ask questions and depending upon the answer. So if you are using this rhombus, this diamond symbol is also called as a rhombus. By using this rhombus, you are taking some conditions. What are that conditions? According to that conditions, it defines the further flow of your data. Okay, is done true or false. If you are taking the condition means either it consists of a true or it consists of a false. Hence this rhombus or diamond symbol is called as decision box. Okay. And now flow lines. To flow lines we are using the flow lines indicates the direction being followed in the flowchart. So here the arrow marks are used for the direction indicator. In a flowchart, every line must have an arrow on it to indicate the direction. The arrow may be in any direction. It may be left or it may be right, it may be down or it may be up. Okay, so these direction indicates the flow of your data, right? And next one is on page connectors. There the page connectors are there. If you are developing a flow chart for a complex problem, if it is not suitable within a one single sheet, then you have to use these page connectors. If you use these page connectors, it indicates the further process or further execution or further diagram in some other charts. Okay, circles used to join the different parts of a flow charts and these circles are called on page connectors. It is treated as an on page connectors. The uses of these connectors gives a neat shape to the flow charts. In a complicated problems, a flowchart may run into several pages. That what exactly I told you. Whenever you develop a complex problems, in that complex problems, it is not fitted within a one single sheet. So that will be represented in various forms of several pages. In the end of a first page, if you want to give the continuation of another page, at that time you are using these page connectors. The parts of the flowchart on different pages are to be joined with each other. The parts to be joined are indicated by the circle. So here you are using the circle followed by the arrow mark. It indicates the page connector. So that information is exist in some other pages. Okay. Yes. And next one is off page connectors. This connector represent a break in the path of a flowchart. If you are using this symbol, this indicates off page connector. It represents break in the path of flowchart which is too large to fit on a single page. So it is also sometimes represented the same as on page connectors, but it indicates it has not fitted whatever the flowchart process you are representing is not fitted within a single page, then at that time you are going to be using this off page connector. It is similar to on page connector. I have exactly told the connector symbol marks where the algorithm ends on the first page and where it continues on the second. This symbol indicates where the first page ends and where it ends, so where it continues. Whenever you are writing the notes, you will write PTO. What is the PTO? Please turn over, right? So PTO indicates it your content is in the next pages, right? In the same sense, when you are developing this complex problem, whenever you are developing, if it is at the end of a page, if it is not fitted, then you can use either on page connector or off page connectors. So these are the symbols we are using. What are the symbols we are using to represent a flowchart? First one is a circle. This circle or oval is used to start or stop, and second one is input and output indicators. This rhombus symbol, sorry, this parallelogram symbol indicates for input and output, and rectangle is always represents the process. Okay, it is a formula. For example, if you want to addition of two numbers, c is equal to a plus b, you will be doing this chart. If you want to process summation of numbers, then you are using this one. Okay, and decision, while using if else switch, all these are the decision making statements, then you are going to be using this rhombus or diamond shape. And next, the flow of lines indicates by using this arrow mark, and this circle with arrow mark indicates the on page connector or off page connector. And here the off page connector is represented like this, and it indicates that flowchart is not ended in the same page, it is continuing in some other pages. To represent that flowchart is continuing in some other pages, you are using off page connectors. Hope you have understand this concept. We will continue in the next class. Yes, welcome my dear student friends. Today we will see, in the last class we have seen this algorithm. What is the definition of an algorithm? An algorithm is a step-by-step procedure to solve a problem, right? As we have seen, what are the steps we have to follow while developing these algorithms, right? So we have seen the steps involved in algorithm, right? Now we will see the properties of algorithm. What are the properties of algorithm must possess? First one is finiteness. An algorithm must terminate in a finite number of steps. It means it has to use some number of steps. Within that steps only it has to be finished. And second one is the definiteness. Each step of the algorithm must be precisely and unambiguously stated. Each step of the algorithm must be precisely and unambiguously stated. So definiteness sense, the property means it has to be precisely, it should be well defined, it should be neat manner. Okay, and unambiguous means without errors, without mistakes, it has to be developed. Okay, and third one is effectiveness. Each step must be effective in the sense that it should be primitive, easily convertible into program statements, can be performed exactly in a finite amount of time. So effectiveness in the sense each step must be effective, that is effective in the sense that it should be primitive, easily convertible into program statement. Whatever you are specifying, generally we are specifying in that algorithm, that has to be directly transfer into a statements. Okay, can be performed exactly in a finite amount of time. It also to be performed within a exact finite amount of time. Next point is generality. The algorithm must be complete in itself so that it can be used to solve problems of a specific type for any input data. So your algorithm must be complete. It should not be incomplete. It must be complete in itself so that it can be used to solve problems of a specific type of any input type. Whatever the data you are inputting, that should be processed according to the specified points. Okay, and next one is input or output. For the generality, let us take a simple example. If you order for your uniform stitching, if it is if the tailor has provided you as an incomplete, can you accept that uniform? No, right? So it must be a complete, it must be well defined, and it must be very effectiveness, and it should be finished within a time. Got it? And next point is property is input or output. Each algorithm must take 0, 1 or more quantity as input data, produce one or more output values. So every algorithm has to accept either 0 or 1 or more quantities. It may be any number of values. Okay, and it has to be produce one or more outputs. Okay, an algorithm can be written in English like sentence or in any standard representation. Sometimes algorithm written in English like language are called pseudocode. So this question is asked, please make a note what is the pseudocode. Okay, we are writing in a general English language to define the flow of a program. That general English language to define the flow of algorithm is called as pseudocode. This has been asked in the 2019 question paper. That is why I have posted in your group your question paper. Please go through it. Okay, and now let me see algorithm for simple problems. Here one example I am considering one problem, then how we have to solve that problem. Okay, suppose we want to find the average of three numbers. The algorithm is as follows. We want to find the average of three numbers. So first what you have to supposed to do, you have to summation it and divided by 3. Got it? Let us see this in step 1 what actually you are doing. In step 1 what you are actually doing, you are reading the numbers. What are the numbers you are reading? You are reading 3 numbers. So I am reading 3 numbers in the form of a comma b comma c. I am taking 3 variables. I am storing 3 values in that variables. Compute the sum of a comma b and c. If you want to calculate the average, then how you are calculating your percentage number of subject by marks in individual subject by number of subjects. Got it? So in the same sense we have to sum of a comma b and c. So after the summation of a, b and c, you are getting the total value. Next, what is our aim? To calculate the average of three numbers. To calculate the average of three numbers, we have to divide the sum by 3. Already in sum you have compute, you have added a plus b plus c value. In step 3 you are dividing that sum by 3 because in the question it has asked for 3 numbers. Okay, and in step 4 store the result in variable d. So then what you are doing? After that you are storing the result in the variable d. Now you are printing the value of d. If you print the value of d, it consists of average of a plus b plus c. Got it? So that is the end of the program. So let us see what is the aim of our program. We have to calculate the average of three numbers. For this you have to suppose to read three numbers. You are reading a, b, c. Afterwards you are computing a plus b plus c. Afterwards you are dividing a plus b plus c by 3. That result you are going to be storing in another variable that is D. Now you are printing the value of D. It consists of an average. In step 6 you are doing end of the program. If you observe here, we are considering every step, right? So to do this job I am taking in step 1, steps 2, step 3, step 4, step 5 and step 6. Don't stick only for the step 6. It may be n number of steps. It may be n number of steps according to your problems. Okay. Yes. Hope you understand this concept. We will move to the next. So what is the next program? Write an algorithm for the following. What is the following? Write an algorithm to calculate the simple interest. What we have to do? We have to calculate the simple interest using the formula simple interest is equal to P into N into R by 100. So here P is the principal amount, N is the number of years and R is the rate of interest. So to calculate to solve this problem, we are using the algorithm. In step 1, we are reading 3 input quantities. What we are doing in step 1, we are reading 3 input quantities. What are those? P value, N value and R value. Next in step 2, what you are doing? Calculate simple interest. So we are calculating the simple interest. How we are calculating? As simple interest is equal to P into N into R by 100. In step 3, what you are doing? You are printing simple interest. Why? The processed information is stored in your P into N into R by 100. It has been stored in P into N into R by 100. Got it? So hence it will be stored in your simple interest. It will be stored in your simple interest. Right? In step 3, what I am doing? I am printing simple interest. What is the final value is exist that will be stored in your simple interest. You are printing that value. In step 4 you are stopping. Okay, got it? Yes. And let us see another algorithm. Maybe these questions will ask for 4 to 5 marks. You have to supposed to write. Okay, you should know what is the problem. In step 1, what you are doing? You have to reading the values, or you can write as a step 1 start, step 2 read the numbers, step 3 process, step 4 divide, right, step 5 display, right. Likewise also you can write. And here one more algorithm is there. You are finding the largest of 3 numbers. So we are calculating the largest of 3 numbers x comma y and z. In first step, what we are doing? We are reading the 3 numbers. What are those 3 numbers you are considering? X, Y, Z. Reading 3 numbers means we are storing 3 values in that variables. Okay. In step 2, what we are doing? We are comparing if x greater than y. If this condition is true, if this condition is true in the step 2, then you are assigning big is equal to x. Okay, in another variable big you are storing the x value. If it is not, it will comes to the else big is equal to y. As we know, what is the big value? Y. If it is not the x, then else it will comes to the y. Okay, in step 3 once again I am coming and I am comparing big less than z. So here in two variable we have compared. If it is else, big will come here, and once again we have to compare one more if, right, that big less than z. Now which one I am treating here? Either x or y, either x or y. For example, let us observe here. I am giving 10, 20, 30. So 10 greater than 20? No, false. It will come here else block, right? In the big, which value it is stored now? 20. Once again, I am writing one more if condition. If 20 less than 30, in Z 30, in big it is 20. 20 less than 30? False, right? Else big becomes a Z. Okay, correct? Here we have missed, right? What we have missed? Yes, if this condition is a false, we have to write like this only. No problem. It is also correct. Okay, big less than z, big is equal to z. I'm checking the condition. If this condition is true, then it will becomes, otherwise it won't execute. Okay, here it will stops and it will comes to the step 5. Print the largest number. That largest number is big. For example, if I want to execute this, I'm making 30, 10, 20. 30 greater than 20, 10, true, big become x. Once again here comes 30 less than 20 false, it will skip the step 4. Okay, directly it will come to the step 5 and it will execute. Okay, when this condition will execute, if this condition is a satisfy only, it will move to the step 4. Got it? Clear? So here we have to mention like, then go to step 4, else go to step 5. So this is the step we have to specify. Okay, if b less than z, we have to go to step 4, afterwards the step 5, else directly go to step 5. Clear? Yes. Likewise, it is a clear information has to be provided. Okay, hope you are understanding this concept. Yes. So likewise, you can create any number of algorithms for any problems. Okay, any number of algorithms for your any problems. Here this picture will give you whether you are solving your problem or not. Okay, now we will see another program. Actually, we know what is the factorial of a number, right? Now we are doing this algorithm for calculating the factorial of a number. In your for loop we have seen, right? So let us start the steps to solve this factorial number using an algorithm. In step 1 we are starting, in step 2 we are reading the number, in step 2 we are reading the number. So what is the number we are reading? Let us see. I am reading it as a 6. Oh no, 5 is enough, I think so. What is the 5 factorial? 1 into 2 into 3 into 4 into 5. 1 into 2 2, 2 into 3 6, 6 into 4 24, 24 into 5 100. Is it? No. 1 into 5 into 4, 5 4 is a